When it comes to Director Pompeo, it is absolutely outrageous that he would not move through quickly. He's extremely qualified for the position. Frankly, for particular members of Congress, that it's very hard for them to justify voting in favor of someone like John Kerry and not following suit and voting in favor of Mike Pompeo.
White House spokesman Sarah Sanders expressing frustration at the expected failure of Mike Pompeo to be confirmed as Secretary of State by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That vote will take place in just a few moments and will include, and we have Chuck Grassley with us now to respond to the charges that were just heard from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It is interesting, is it not, that already, even just as a nominee, Mike Pompeo has done more regarding North Korea than either John Kerry or Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, look at his academic, public service, military service, how he's reorganized and rejuvenated the CIA, and then, like you say, have a personal mission from the President of the United States to go to North Korea, the first high-level person to have contact with Kim Jong-un, that it shows that the president's got great confidence in him. But this is a very strong individual, just exactly the strong voice that the United States needs to have in foreign affairs, and not just with North Korea, but I'm more concerned about China ripping us off and everything that they're doing to steal our intellectual property, to have some strong voice there.
Well, and he, as CIA director, he knows so much of what's been going on underneath the surface that most of us don't see. So in many ways, he's better prepared. And yet John Kerry was confirmed 94-3 by the Senate. Hillary Clinton 94-2 by the Senate. And he won't be able to get past the Senate committee. I mean, what's up with that, Senator?
Well, obviously, you know that one senator is holding out there that's going to bring about that negative vote. But what I heard through
forgive me, you're talking about Rand Paul as the one Republican who's against it, but you have every single Democrat is going to vote against a man who is so highly qualified for the position. What's going on?
Well, then it's pretty easy to say what's going on there. They're getting a lot of pressure from their base that's very anti-Trump, and this is an anti-Trump vote. It surely can't be considered an anti-Pompeo vote, considering how qualified Pompeo has been. So that's strictly politics on their side. It's a shame that we don't have foreign policy ending at the shoreline. That was the case until about 15 years ago.
Well, it will go to a full Senate vote, and it just takes a simple majority. There are 3 Democrats now. There's Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin, and Joe Donnelly, a Democrat from Indiana, just announced he would vote in favor of Mike Pompeo. So with those 3 votes, he should pass with a majority.
I think that there's no doubt about it. The vice president, I thought this morning, not finding out about 2 other Democrat votes, that the vice president would be breaking the tie. It's a shame if you look at the history of people who have been confirmed by the United States Senate for Secretary of State, that this is as close as it's ever gotten. The first time that also the first time that the Foreign Relations Committee hasn't approved somebody overwhelmingly as well. It's just a shame.
It's amazing. Let's talk about the issue that we've been focusing so much on, North Korea, because a lot of people who failed to contain North Korea's nuclear program are now criticizing President Trump for being too naive and criticizing Mike Pompeo for going over there and talking to the leaders. These are people who actually failed to contain North Korea's nuclear development, about which the president tweeted out earlier today. He said, funny how all of the pundits that couldn't come close to making a deal on North Korea are now all over the place telling me how to make a deal. What do you think?
You just answered your question, so I won't repeat that, but I think you'll get very firm conviction on the part of the president that he's not going in this to be blindsided. He made very clear statements last week, that nothing is certain, that he's willing to walk away. And if you aren't willing to walk away from a negotiation, you shouldn't be negotiating in the first place. and I think the president laid it down. But I think also you got to look at what I consider good news. Now, this, I may turn out to be looking like a naive on this point, but it seems to me like the leader of North Korea has made very positive statements about his willingness to negotiate hard terms of things we're interested in.
Yeah, let me just switch very quickly. We don't have much time, but as head of the Judiciary Committee, you've been investigating the whole Russia thing. You're particularly interested, as I am, and a lot of us here, in what Fusion GPS was up to working with the Democratic Party. We know the Democratic Party and the Hillary campaign spent millions with them. Were they getting their information for the Trump dossier from the Russians, and isn't that Russian collusion?
Well, yes, and I think that you're going to get an answer to your question within the next 2 or 3 weeks when the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, and he's a very well-qualified person. He was appointed by Obama. Don't let that scare you in any way. He's doing his job of investigating, and I think we'll get an answer to a lot of those questions when the IG report comes out. Mr. Horowitz is a very good Inspector General. Well, and you run good committee searches yourself, so we look forward to what you dig up. Chuck Grassley, great to see you, sir. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.